What's up, Titans fans? Welcome to week number 3 right here on 104.5 The Zone TV. We're getting you ready for kickoff between the Tennessee Titans and the Indianapolis Colts right here with some of the best audio and, of course, video on 104.5 The Zone TV from our shows this week. And we begin with our guys in the morning show, J-Mart and Ramon, along with News 2's Kayla Anderson, recapping what was a thrilling finish for the Titans in Seattle last week, talking specifically about the special teams and what this team looks like heading into week 3 back at home.
Guests appear via the Marks Manning Real Estate Hotline, including Auntie Kayla Anderson, WKRN, joining us on the line. Kayla, how are you?
Good morning, my friends. I was telling Shafe I'm on my second cup of coffee, still not fully awake, so I hope y'all are doing a little better than me this morning.
Oh, well, we got up before 5, Kayla, so get on our level is all we can say about that.
Well, my husband got up at 5, so there you go.
Oh,
Wait. Did you just challenge her? Is that what you did, Jason? Because that wasn't being very gracious.
You do know what show we host, right, Mom? Right, Shafe?
This is the other thing. Kayla, you're trying to piggyback a win from your husband to get a win for yourself?
Oh, baby, any way I can do it this morning, I'm going to do it.
Okay.
Well, that right. You knew that's going on the soundboard, didn't you? You said that and you enunciated it.
But that is. Starting off strong, fellas.
Moan, considering you were 0 for in birthdays, maybe you should use Kayla's husband to also pick you up after a loss.
No. She's not in the sharing, and I don't want that, okay?
All right, so
Please tell me you got Teresa's birthday, though.
We did at the top of the fourth
Okay.
hour. Yeah, of course we got her. So the Titans got a dub yesterday. You know that part of the country very well, obviously.
Yeah.
How important was the win and how surprising, especially with the way the first half ended?
Yeah, first of all, to get a win in that territory is incredible, considering everything that happened before leading into the game. Just that stadium has been changed a million times in terms of the name, but currently Lumen Stadium has been just one of the toughest places to play in the entire NFL. I mean, the way that it's built, the sound goes directly down. Those Seattle Seahawks fans are very passionate. And they hadn't been there in quite a while because they didn't have any fans last year. So you knew you're going into a real hostile territory, maybe even more so than in a while because they just haven't had fans. But then on top of it, you have Taylor Lewan, who injures his knee in pregame warmups, and I think everybody scrambled to Twitter and was like, this is a nightmare. Like, this is not going to be good. And I think even when we saw just the first half play from them and the deficit that they were in, just some of the big plays they gave up, it just didn't look good. And when you look at the statistics and you go back, and I think there was like a next-gen stat, too, that was saying it was almost impossible for the Titans at some point to come back in this game. And then lo and behold, the second half, it's like a whole new team. And again, you just have to give so much credit to the fight in this team. And you kind of knew in the past they had it in them. But you got to give a lot of credit to Derrick Henry because he's the one that really lit the fire yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, the stat that we saw and that we mentioned a couple times, Derrick Henry, leading rusher yesterday in the NFL, 182. Second leading rusher was Derrick Henry after contact with 160 yards. And then Dalvin Cook was third with 130. That's just preposterous stuff from Derrick Henry in the second half.
It is. And I just think we keep saying, is he going to be able to do it again next year? Can he continue to just stay healthy after all these carries that he's had? I mean, this guy yesterday posted a career high in rushing attempts with 35, and to add to the yards on the ground, he had 6 receptions. I mean, he was catching balls. It doesn't always look pretty, right? But he was getting the job done however he needed to get it done. I remember my first season here watching Derrick Henry, and it wasn't good. And to see him turn things around and continue to carry this team on his back in certain situations, it really is amazing to think about.
Going into halftime, 24-9. Did you expect this team to kind of pull this off? And the reason I'm asking you this is simply because I'm somewhat believing this backs against the wall mantra. Like, it's hard to live that life. We had somebody earlier say you need to take your blood pressure pills and do a woosah or something to watch the Titans. But is this a real thing with this team, considering they won how they won 24-9 first half?
Yeah, and that's why I picked the Titans to win this game. I'm going to give myself a pat on the back here coming into this on our TN Nation show. I was the only one that picked them, and the reason why is just my gut was telling me Mike Vrabel loves to prepare his teams for these type of situations and these type of games when they are the complete underdog. And then even when they're losing in the first half, we've seen situations where in the second half they have been able to get it together and come back. Like you had mentioned, Bowen, their backs against the wall. They kind of like playing like that. A little scary to think about, but you do kind of have to go with your gut in those situations because they've just proven it time and time again. But I think this was the biggest for them in terms of a comeback, just being in the Pacific Northwest in that kind of an environment with everything against them. They could have clearly thrown in the towel. I just think this win was so impressive with how they were able to turn it up in the second half.
Watching, of course, the big conversation today is the referees. Were you a little surprised by this? Is this on par with, Seattle having home field advantage the way they do? What was your thoughts on just the calls?
You always wonder in the NFL with some of these games, like, what is their mindset in these situations? Like, because you do really feel like they were giving Seattle a lot of these calls. And from everything from overturning the Julio Jones touchdown, which the last time I checked, if you don't have good enough evidence to overturn it, you don't overturn the call. And there just was no reason to overturn that call. I mean, it was called a touchdown, and it should have stayed a touchdown. There was also the Chris Carson giving him that first down, which clearly it was short. And then the safety. I mean, that's the one I think that if you just went on social media, that's everybody's like, how did they not get that right? Which the Titans could have lost this game in overtime, potentially. If it didn't go their way, and you would have looked back at that situation and been like, oh my gosh, that's a head scratcher. But you're right. You do kind of wonder what are they kind of like pushing for the home crowd there, the home team?
I mean, maybe. I mean, I don't know about home cooking, but I do think you can get caught up in the atmosphere. I think even without trying to, like, I'm not saying the fix is in and conspiracies and all this other stuff, but I do think when you're out there in that crowd, electric, and let's not forget the officials last year didn't have fans, so they're excited as well, and maybe they're overdoing this a little bit right now.
Yeah, and that could be a part of it. I mean, the adjustment for everybody is clearly a factor, and I wasn't there, so I wasn't able to really hear and feel what it was like, but from everything that I've heard, for majority of the game, it was crazy. Like, and you could tell when Tannehill and the offense was out there that you could barely hear anything. And so just like players, I think it's possible that officiating can get caught up in that energy and atmosphere as well. But those are three, especially those two that I mentioned, are pretty big, like, calls that just I thought were wrong.
They were wrong.
They were just over the top. What was right and felt right and ended up the game right was the new kicker, Randy Bullock. He here to stay? Are you buying a jersey? Where are you on this situation, Kayla? Because the rest of Nashville was rejoiced yesterday afternoon with the win the way they did, considering the history.
First of all, funny story. So I clearly am out at practice every week, at least 3 times a week, but we don't see the kickers mostly. And so we had seen Randy Bullock from afar. By the way, real short dude, not very tall.
No.
So yesterday we're watching post as we're putting together our sports show, and I look up, and I kid you not, and I'll admit this, for a split second, I said, who the heck is that?
You are
Randy
petty.
Bullock coming to the podium. I figured out quickly it was Randy Bullock. But here's the thing, guys. First of all, good for him, and glad that he was able to hit that to win it for the Titans. Because first of all, he was here for a little bit, but it's still getting familiar with this team. Still getting familiar with his teammates, and then you're going straight to Seattle, to that environment to play in. And talk about the mental side of the game. That's all what it's about for kickers, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I give him props. I know he missed one, but I think it's a good start. I'm not going to say he's here to stay, because if you look at the history of kickers here, it's like a curse. But I'm hoping that after maybe next week he continues to be on this path, and at least till they get Sam Ficken back. And Ackerman had mentioned briefly that they were hoping maybe to stick with Ficken if he gets healthy. But if this Bullock guy can come in and do his job, I'd have to say they'd probably just roll with him.
Welcome back in. Will Boling back here with you from my home office here in Nashville, Tennessee, as we get you ready for Titans and Colts and coverage starting with Buck Rising on 104.5 The Zone here coming up in a matter of minutes. We pivot, though, to Titans Radio's head coach as we take a look ahead to what this Indianapolis team does, and of course continue to recap Titans and Seahawks last week. The head coach of Titans Radio, Dave McGinnis, offered his analysis with Blaine and Mickey.
We're on with Coach Mack, giving us the Mack attack. Was Seattle as loud as advertised?
Okay, come on, Blaine. I mean, look, they had, and again, as I said, I've been there. Of course, in the NFC West, and when I went in there with Jeff Fisher to take over the Rams, we took over a team that had been 15-65 the previous 5 years. They were terrible, and we knew that if we're going to compete in the NFC West, we had to build a team to be able to beat Seattle. They were the top dog, and so the 9 games that I coached, against them, because the 10th game after they let Fish go, when the front office took over the team, I don't count that one. We were 5-4, so we always found a way and had to devise ways to beat those people. But when you go up there to play, now I've been in a lot of stadiums around the country, both collegiately and in the National Football League, and that place is different. And especially this time, because they hadn't had fans in there for over a year. Look, they had a concert before the game with everybody in the stand. They brought Macklemore out, and he was doing his thing. They brought the UW band, and they were dancing to Macklemore. I mean, it was a concert, before the game, and that crowd was juiced. I mean, they were fired up, and it is it's the loudest outdoor venue in the league, bar none.
Mm-hmm. Well, besides the superstars, Coach, Tannehill, the King and everybody else's superstars, who stood out that you think, like, I think we may be on to something. He's starting to play up to the level that we thought he would.
Yeah, when I watch a game, I'm watching units, but I think the last 2 weeks, Christian Fulton's really acquitted himself very well out there at the corner. I mean, we talked about earlier during training camps about how he looked stronger and he looked more like, physically an NFL corner, and he's playing like that right now. So, I thought he did very well. Now, I mean, he had some things that he's got to clean up. I mean, we had a complete bust back there. He may have been involved with it, or he may not have. I don't grade players anymore because I did that for 30 years, extensively. I don't know exactly what the call was, but I know that wasn't the call. That's not what they planned, for Swain to be running down there wide open. And so, but I like what he's been doing. He's been pretty consistent since training camp.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Coach, I got to give you one more, and that is the refereeing. And I'm not real big on talking about the refereeing. But, man, I hear you, calling the game, and I'm like, man, I wonder what Coach Mack would have been like, because your get-back coach would have been really active in this game, I would imagine.
Yeah, my get-back coach would have had me around the throat. Because here's the thing. And again, as first of all, spotting the ball, that third down, that was awful. Okay, that was bad. Julio Jones scored a touchdown. All right. I mean, that was very evident also. They did get the call right on the one, where they called him short of the goal line, before Derrick Henry walked in on. They got that call right. I don't know what to make of the taunting rule. I do know this: if they're going to emphasize it, there's already been 11 taunting calls so far in 2 weeks in the National Football League. So if I were a player and I even thought about looking at somebody cross-eyed, I wouldn't.
Right. Yeah. No penalties. For sure. We're on with Coach Mack, giving us the Mack attack. One more question, I guess, on that note.
Yeah.
What do you think they can do a better job of the National Football League? They've come up with all these different ideas to help improve refereeing. It's a tough job. But what do you got any ideas what maybe they could do to improve the refereeing?
No, but I do know this. It's never been as smooth, and it's never been as synergistic. In other words, put together as it was when Mike Pereira was there. They changed head officials. It's never been the same. And plus now, Blaine, to your point, they got two different people now doing the replay. Yeah. All right. They got two completely, and one of them's not a former official. One of them's a former coach, Perry Fuel. And so that, to me, I think the inconsistency in the coaching office and the way it's the inconsistency in the leadership, I think, has made a big difference. I mean, I just know how good it was when Mike Pereira was there, and so I'm not in. Look, I study officials. I study crews. I study a lot of things. So does Mike Keith, as far as knowing who calls what. When I was coaching, I would study crews to know, be able to tell my team, this team is a little bit liberal on defensive pass interference down the field. This team will call you for just barely touching them, so keep your hands in. This team calls very little offensive holding, especially on play action passes or runs to the edges. This crew right here calls, it very liberally. And so all of those things I used to study. I don't, I look at them. Mike Keith always gives us their stats, for the week prior, and then keeps up with it, throughout the year. But I've never been an official. It is an extremely hard job, but I just know how much more together it was, when I was coaching and Mike Pereira was in charge.
Well, with Coach Mack giving us the Mack attack.
Coach, the first play that you named was that third down play where Carson reached the ball out and was near the out of bounds line and was essentially a full yard short. It wasn't even close. They hurried up and they ran another play, and we were discussing this in post game and what could Vrabel have done. The guy tweeted us and said, "Well, it's where the ball is spotted, so you can't." They said he couldn't challenge, I guess, the spot of the ball, and the Seahawks moved quickly. My thing was this: even if you wanted to save your timeouts, that's up to Mike Vrabel or not. I'm asking you this from a procedural standpoint. Could he have called timeout, though? Just take a timeout right there before Seattle runs another play, and in that time, maybe the officials on their own say, that was pretty close, we should take a look. Could something like that have even happened?
No, they're not ever going to look at it on their own.
Okay.
Unless you challenge it. And here's the other thing too. Unless it's egregious, which, Titans, I'm a Titans. Titan fans, everybody's going to think, it was egregious, but unless it's egregious, you're getting a spot call. The best chance you have is on the sideline, but it has to be, clear and evident. It's clear and evident to everybody wearing two-tone blue, but it may not have been clear and evident to the people back in New York. As I just said, you got two different people doing it now. So, I would not have wasted a challenge on it, and definitely not wasted a timeout.
The anatomy of an explosive play is always so interesting to me because you look at this Titans offense trying to replicate the success that it had under Arthur Smith with Todd Downing as the new offensive coordinator. It's a challenge to try to replicate what this team has done in past seasons. Greg Cosell on the install on 104.5 The Zone's podcast network joined Buck Rising to discuss how the Titans schemed up so many deep passes and long bombs against the Seattle Seahawks.
So let's talk then about the offensive side of the football, Greg, because it was obviously a much better outing across the board. Tannehill, I thought, despite the protection issues in week one, has been really, really stout, trying to get them in and out of correct looks, checking at the line of scrimmage, even when he doesn't necessarily go with the play that's called. But Downing was able to scheme up a lot more explosive plays. Now, the execution, certainly on A.J. Brown's side of things, was not ideal. But what did you see first and foremost from the Titans on offense, and how they were able to, better set up those explosive plays from week one?
And I will say this, because a lot of people think they know. People who think they know what Tannehill's saying at the line of scrimmage, unless you're a coach and unless you're in the room, you don't know. You can guess. So, he does a lot. He speaks a lot. It's like I have this whole conversation always about Dak Prescott. He does the same thing. He talks a lot, before the snap. We don't know what he's saying.
Right.
So we don't know what Tannehill's saying. But obviously he's given a lot of freedom. And the only time coaches give quarterbacks that kind of freedom is if they're good at it.
Yeah.
So they wouldn't give him that freedom if he couldn't do it.
Right.
So, but yeah, I mean, the explosive plays, sometimes I thought his best explosive play, and it was explosive, was the 51-yarder to Jones. Okay. Mm-hmm. And the reason why that was so fascinating to me is because what is one of their favorite pass concepts, Buck? It's that bang, play action, and then they hit the slant, right? Or the quick inbreaker. They've done it to Brown through the years. They've started to do it with Julio Jones, but I'm sure people who are Titans fans can picture it.
Yeah.
He's under center. It's quick play action. It's a 3-step drop or a very quick 5-step drop. The linebackers step up, and he just sticks that inbreaker right behind them. We've seen Brown last year score probably 3 or 4 touchdowns on that. You know the play. You can picture it, right?
Yeah, I've seen Corey Davis run it a million times.
Yeah, he ran it as well.
Yeah.
So with that play in mind, think about the 51-yarder to Jones. They actually ran a very similar concept, okay? And it was after they had run their staple concept of quick bang play action, hitting the inbreaker. And the post safety Diggs, he read Tannehill's quick drop off the play action. I'm convinced of this. The film shows you that. He read Tannehill's quick drop off the play action, and he sat low on the inbreaker tendency by Brown, okay? Mm-hmm. And Brown actually kind of slipped out of his break. He might not have been open anyway because Diggs was certain that's where the ball was going.
Right.
Because, hey, he'd seen that all leading up to that week. I guarantee in the meeting rooms, they told him that. And then he saw it in the game, and now he saw it again. And you know what? He probably thought in his mind, I'm coming up, and maybe I'll make a pick, but I'm certainly going to stop that play from happening.
Yeah.
So what happened there? Because it was zone, it was cover 3. Jones ran the post route behind that. And it was against an outside leverage corner Flowers because it was cover 3, and corners tend to play with outside leverage, meaning they're outside the receiver. And then Tannehill just did a great job of recognizing that Diggs sat low, and he threw over the top, and he threw a great ball, by the way. So that play, to me, when I saw that play, I just smiled a little bit because I thought that was just outstanding recognition and execution by Tannehill.
Yeah, no, he was as good as a game as I've seen from him in as hostile environment as there is in the NFL.
Oh yeah,
that's my first time
How
out
about
to
the
Seattle.
screen
Greg.
game to Derrick Henry? 2 design screens. I wonder if we're going to see more of those, Buck.
Well, and certainly with Todd Downing in his 1 year as the play caller in Oakland, he loves to get the football to the running backs in the passing game. It's been a minute since we've seen a well-executed screen to Derrick Henry, Greg. So, and I was glad to see them pull it off and keep going back to it when they were having success.
Yeah, I mean, they threw 2 design screens to Henry. He had, I think, 6 catches, but I'm almost sure it was 2 design. Maybe I missed one.
No, that's correct.
I can't remember. Yeah. I think you're going to see more of that as the season progresses because you want to get Henry out in space. What they'll do is they'll start adding tweaks to that. They'll create some misdirection because what you want to do with Henry, obviously, is get him out in front with blockers with fewer defenders. For people who watched the Packers game Monday night, they had some great misdirection screens to Robert Tonyan, the tight end. It doesn't matter who you throw it to, tight end, Henry, but you want space. You want Henry to catch the ball with space in front of him so that he can build up his speed and his power. So I think that's something you're going to see more of.
with their running game, Greg, because obviously Derek went crazy in the second half. We've talked about this before. The explosive runs are often more a result of defensive gap misses, basically, as opposed to exceptional blocking. Were you seeing that from Seattle, or were the Titans getting that kind of push up front?
Well, I'm going to tell you something that I think might be a surprise to people, but I think their run game was really not that good. Okay. I think it still needs to be much better. Okay. Because Henry had the 60-yard run. Okay. And that came on a zone counter strong concept. And he made the unblocked corner. Flowers missed in space, which he'll do. A lot of corners don't really want to tackle him. And then the speed, he ran away from the safety. But I thought that Henry ended up with big numbers as a result of that run. But I thought overall, the Titans' base personnel run game still needs work. Now, don't forget the O-line's dealing with injuries, but I thought they struggled at the point of attack much of the game. Look, big runs count, okay? We know that. But all I'm saying is you take away that run, and it counts, and he averaged less than 4 yards to carry. And I did not feel that they consistently moved people and won at the point. I thought Henry ran really well and gained, as he always does, gaining yards after contact. But my guess is that the coaching staff, when they got on the plane and when they got back, while they're drinking their scotch, they're talking about the fact that we still need to be better in the run game.
Closing out our digital pregame show, Buck Rising will take the reins on 104.5 The Zone coming up here at the top of the hour on FM radio. But before we end our digital preview for the Titans and the Colts, we look back once again to week number 2. Rodger Saffold at our Titans football feast out at Buffalo Wild Wings earlier this week was on 3HL talking about the specific challenges in Seattle and how this team moves on to a tough divisional matchup here today against Indy.
Rodger Saffold is here, and he's laughing at y'all. Listen, man, we got OGs in the building. You know what I mean? Like, come on, man. Hey! Wild Wings on call. If you good and happy to be in the building, make some noise. It's a little bit better. It's a little bit better.
Rodger.
Not like we lost or something Sunday.
Titans offensive lineman Rodger Saffold joins us now on 3HL. Rodger, what's up, man? How are you?
And I said Rodger, we lost or something.
No, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, man. Socially distanced, so it's a little weird, but
it is weird.
Right.
We had to jump through some hoops to even do these things. So thanks for being over there.
No problem at all.
Hey, how's the shoulder? First off, I know you were in and out of the game on Sunday, which had to be frustrating because you want to be out there with the guys.
Right, absolutely. Definitely want to be out with those guys, game in, game out. It was unfortunate, but it's something I actually dealt with before.
Okay.
So it's not new to me, which leads me to be really confident about this week.
All right.
Outside of confidence, too, though, how much coaching did you turn into? It's everything but putting the headset on as far as, leading the guys and everything, and the people that took your spot right there to fill in. What was that like?
Man, I couldn't be prouder of those guys. I mean, it's so many things can happen, so many distractions, and losing Taylor early, of course, is just right off the bat is just a little bit hard. But then, for me going down with that injury was really tough. So seeing Aaron Brewer go out there, seeing Tyson Rilla go out there and do the job, I was in the mix the entire time. It's crazy, with those type of injuries, it's not going to hurt me to walk, it's not going to hurt me to run. So I'm jumping around, I'm still really deep in the game, and even prepared to go in if we had an emergency. So. It's just the ebb and flow of the game, and just happy that those guys were able to step up.
Did you know that the last time the Seahawks lost a home opener was 2008? So they had won 12 in a row, and I think the NFL record was 13 if they would have gotten it done. The weird thing about that, though, is, and we talked about it last week, in 2008 they lost to the 49ers 33-30 in overtime.
Oh, wow.
Isn't that weird?
It's unbelievable.
How loud was it in Seattle?
Oh, man, they haven't been able to have a home game in a couple years, so, it was extremely loud. Almost the smallest things they were cheering for, and it's great to see, man. You love being in that type of environment. The one thing that I hated for some of those young guys last year is they didn't get some of the environments that, that you just love to play in as a professional athlete. So they got a chance to get that, and then, everybody's looking at me because I was the only person that's been there. When it started getting kind of loud, and I was just like, it gets you chills, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And, it's fun, man.
You're the OG.
Oh, yeah.
But here's the funny thing. You were telling us this before we started the show. It was loud, but if you got a false start, they almost acted like the crowd got you, like they won. And they got louder.
They put all false starts on the 12th man. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you messed up in the huddle or if the count was wrong or if we were running out of time. No. They did it the whole time.
They need their props, man.
Yeah. Rodger Saffold with us. Rodger, coming in, obviously a lot of talk of new offensive coordinator, adding Julio Jones, new weapon, all of that. And I've said all summer, I'm like, I bet it's going to take time to kind of find that chemistry. Where is this offense when we talk chemistry? Where are you guys right now?
Right now, we're just a step in the right direction. That's what I really take it as. I don't want to say that we arrived because we haven't. There's still a lot of things that we got to correct. Love to see the way that Julio played on Sunday.
Yeah.
That was a breath of fresh air. Love that we're getting a run game going. And love to see the process that it takes to get there. Grinding out those 1 and 2 yard and 3 yard runs start to open up in the second half. And, I think that we take a lot of pride in that. But as the offense as a whole, we knew that we looked glamorous on paper. We had, the nice crispy white, little stars on it and everything glitter and everything. But it's all going to come down to the grind, which is, it's not pretty, it's ugly, and it's character defined. And our character really won that game Sunday.
Can we ask this? Like, I know you guys watch Monday's film day, right? So what was the talk on the Julio touchdown that was called back within the team? I get it's a rule, but I think it's dumb. I don't.
Honestly, I think that what it really was is, one, if you follow our Twitter account at all, it's a bunch of baloney.
Right.
But two, I just didn't think that there was enough to overturn it. You would need a microscope to see on your television to see if there was a blade of grass in between his heel and out of bounds. But, it's just the way that it goes. I can't believe that they found enough to overturn that.
Agreed.
Yeah, that was crazy. But
maybe Julio wears white shoes.
Instead of the red shoes, so the green. Yeah, little standout thing. But hey, so how do you regroup from that though? Because y'all could have been down, could have been up, but we're down. You go back to it. And you get back to the drawing board, and you still say, "Man, we're knocking at the door. We're knocking at the door." And they're gonna open, and if they don't, we're gonna kick it in. You come back out second half, and it's a totally different game as far as just controlling it. From the beginning of it.
I think that we just starting to understand that we have to continue to fall in love with the process.
Yeah.
Because you look at our efficiency in the red zone, it was not the same as it's been in the past.
Yeah.
We've been very efficient in the red zone, scoring touchdowns instead of settling for field goals. We score touchdowns, and then now the game is completely changed. We don't have to go into overtime, and we get to run our true 4-minute offense, which we really enjoy.
Yeah.
So, it's just once again, just getting back to the process, understanding that this is a step in the right direction, but we're not there yet,
right?
And continuing to improve, daily improvement, daily excellence.
And the potential from those young guys, man, not being able to, like you said, everybody turned to you, especially walking in that stadium, and outside of just walking in that stadium, you got young guys that's really getting time in the NFL now. They don't know how to respond to it. But how good was that to see the potential of those young guys be able to step up into the moments, especially on offense?
I think that you only get those moments when you deal with a lot of adversity.
Mm-hmm.
We've dealt with a lot of adversity in training camp. We went down to Tampa, guys getting injured, guys getting sick. We had to deal with all these different problems. Our offensive line probably had me and maybe Quisenberry were the only people that were starters from last year that were actually playing during camp. So, going through that, I think that it helps in the season when you get in those environments and your back's against the wall. But can you do it when your back's not against the wall?
Yeah.
And I think that's what we're looking for.
There you go.
You talk about that. Obviously, a big part of that is, okay, you have each other's backs. So we played Vrabe's post-game speech in the locker room yesterday, and then Derrick Henry after that. And I just thought it was so telling and such a great look into the culture of this team and this franchise right now. And you've been at different franchises. Now you're part here. What have you seen from that standpoint, just the culture of where you guys are?
Going from L.A. and coming here, it was a bit different just from how we practice, how we prepare, kind of the identity of the team. And, through coming here, I found out that this is a blue-collar mentality out here. Everything is about the effort that you put out. In fact, that's the first thing that you're graded on, above all else, above your technique, your assignment. It's always effort first. So, the team continually does that. So you see that all the time when it comes down to guys running downfield, guys picking up guys off the ground. I mean, if you look at the rest of the game with Julio, when he wasn't getting the ball, he was making great blocks. He had a great block on the first Henry touchdown. I mean,
so
that's
was
what
AJ.
you want to see as your players. Yeah, that's what you want to see as your players. I mean, yeah, with AJ, the second touchdown, the way that he was able to fill in and take the safety pressure and give Derek a lane, I mean, there was no way for that corner to be right. Safety takes a bad angle to the house.
So that is our show here on 104.5 The Zone TV. Make sure you tune in to Buck Rising, getting you ready for kickoff. Titans and Colts today. Big chance to push Indy to 0-3. Let's get this win. Titans and Colts is coming up next. Coverage begins next on 104.5 The Zone.